Hi, welcome to the Healing Mamas. I'm Sharon Shoemaker and I'm with Brittney Hobbs here. And we are the Healing Mamas. And we are creating this space to create community, to create support, to create conversations that will help breathe life into motherhood and into our own lives. And our intention with these calls is to speak and give voice and create space to discuss and have conversations around how to cultivate a more sacred life, how to live with more reverence, how to tend to our vitality and our wellness so that we can show up as mamas, like mothering well, mothering from a really good state of well-being. And so welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
We just dropped in on this call and created our own little sacred ritual of setting the intention for what we hope to unfold and to touch the lives and the hearts of those tuning in. And we want to invite you to take a moment and just drop into this space with us. Maybe pour yourself a cup of tea or grab a candle and light it with us. And just, just hold the intention that this time right now is going to be the most supportive way for you to spend the next 30 or so minutes. We love it when you comment and share about how what we've spoken about or the things that we're talking about land and how you're navigating them. We both believe that motherhood is best traversed when we kind of come around a well or gather and we can share and learn from each other's experiences and wisdom. So having you contribute your voice is really important to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we absolutely love that. And we get excited, and it also spurs further conversations when we see things coming up in the comments as well.
Yeah. And like always, before getting on, we're like, what do we talk about? What's alive for us? And again, we kind of have a little tradition of having a little business meeting before getting on these calls. And so there was so much alive about what we're creating and some like gaining clarity and fine-tuning what we really want to like birth and put into this world.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it comes down to living a sacred life and what that looks like. And so that's something we really wanted to talk about today. And one of the things that came up was just, even something as simple as having a cup of tea and breathing in the scent of it and offering gratitude to the plants and what went into making that tea and how it's going to serve our body, or how it just brings a moment of to our lives is a super simple act of what it is to live a sacred life.
I love that. And I have a reminder and an invitation that I have a sacred human here that I'm trying to model things like that for. So I'm going to pause for just a moment and give him just a minute of my time and answer him so that he learns that I'm here for him. So just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
I'm back. Thank you for that. I think that is such an invitation right now to speak into like what is sacred living and sacred mothering. And I know for me, if I'm like getting curious about what is sacred living or defining it. It means like being a present mom, being connected to my children, responding to them with a sense of like grace and compassion. And it also means like pursuing this calling that's been put on my heart to step into my gifts and be of service and create a sacred business. So right now I'm moving through what that looks like, of how to be available to my children and also available to this calling. And as most of our audience members are mamas and probably mamas on a mission, I'm guessing that many of you are navigating that piece as well. Brittney, I'm sure that this is something that you are traversing through as well.
Yes, definitely. And still figuring out the balance of holding presence for both of them. So the act of sacred living is a practice and a spiral that gets deeper and deeper, right? And in sacred living, for me, I love what you said about the presence for your children and the presence for yourself and presence for our family in general, and also having life be that living teacher, that living mystery school, and having the space and the slowness and the quietness to self-reflect, or cultivating the capacity to self-reflect amongst the busyness and the chaos, to recognize when things are coming from that place of groundedness or coming from an inner wound that we have present, and also learning to hold space, and for me holding structure and a flow for myself of being able to tune into where the tensions are in my body, or what emotions are feeling stuck, or what my mental layer or my mental state of being is, if it's supportive or if it's hypercritical or negative. And all of that kind of paints this picture of at least dabbling my toe in that sacred act of sacred living. And there's so many other things that play into that too, with the foods that we choose to put into our bodies and the energetics that we bring into cooking or preparing that food and serving that food. Things as simple as when we take a shower, are we just quickly going through the motions, or are we really being present with that and feeling the water hit our body and the warmth or the coolness, depending on what kind of shower you like, or the sense of the shampoo that you use, or when you're washing your hair or your body, are you doing it from a place of reverence and gratitude for the body that we do have? Or again, is it just that unconscious, just automatic, I've been doing this my whole life, just scrub it down, get it over with, and move on to the next thing. And it's so, I guess if we boiled it down to like the very limited, or like if we were just going to put it into a simple sentence, it really does come down to what intention, what consciousness, or what amount of presence are you bringing to all the different moments of life? Are they automatic reactions or actions or responses, or is there a lot of intention and reverence and presence tied to them?
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I'm teetering, there's times that I am just the unconscious get through the shower. And there's other times that, I turn the lights off and bring one of these like red amber reading lights that I have into the bathroom, and it casts this really beautiful glow. And I slow things down, and it feels so supportive. Like I feel like I can just like get that little bit of connection with myself and connection with like what's really important in life. And it just allows things to be slowed down. And like you said, like when things are slowed down, you have the ability to like drop into like awareness and intention. And we had talked about it earlier, like what we're giving attention to. And I think with like the slowed down lens, that it allows you to see maybe some things aren't worth giving our attention to, and some things like are more deserving of our attention. And the other part that you were speaking to that like highlighted is many of us have walked through life with a lens of not valuing, not honoring our body, not seeing that this vessel is a sacred, precious expression of creation and divinity. And with that, you talk like the food choices, you know, what we're putting in our bodies, how we spend our time, like burning the candle at both ends, like vegging out, like unconsciously eating stuff that we know isn't going to make us feel good at the end of the day or the next morning, drinking things that are literally poison to our bodies. And I think we've been conditioned out of like seeing ourselves as a sacred expression of like, yeah, like you said, the great mystery school, like what is all of this? And at the same point, we are a part of it. And if you can look out in the trees into nature or a butterfly and see the magic and beauty and just interconnectedness of all of those things, then I invite you to begin looking at yourself through that lens, especially because so many of us have walked through it with a lens of self-hatred, or I can't think of the word, but like where we're putting where we're putting ourselves down, where we're putting each other down. I think we had spoken earlier about the language that we use, both in like that self-deprecating energy that many of us grew up with, where we're cracking jokes on ourselves, or in family or school, there was an energy of teasing and joking and like unkind language in the name of fun, or like not honoring what's really alive and what emotions really are present or how we really feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how much of our language is focused on that negativity or that sense of battle or fighting or competition, and really bringing conscious awareness to what we're speaking out into the world. And that goes for internally, like how I speak to myself and bringing awareness to that, and also how I speak to those around me, and finding those unconscious or subconscious patterns that come up from our upbringing that we can witness, that we're kind of replicating, and just bringing that awareness and that intention, like, ooh, I want to shift that and keep moving towards more loving and more nurturing, more compassionate language that is uplifting. I know I had an experience where, like within family, you know, somebody shared like, oh, we're just training them because life is hard. We're just training him and we're getting him ready. And my response was, you know, the world is hard and challenging. And within family, that's not what we're here for. We don't need to be the ones that are preparing them for the harshness of the world. The family needs to be the one that is providing that safe, nourishing, nurturing container. And that starts with our approach to what we're cultivating and creating within ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important because like where we're planted, like what family we're planted in and how they choose to communicate, and the words and the language, their like level of consciousness or unconscious communication deeply affects and imprints us. It's kind of like the seed that we've been planted into in this environment is either going to support our thriving, or it's going to create trauma. It's going to put us in a state of survival. It's going to put us in a state of like struggling. And there's so many adults that are walking through, and so many children that are walking through the world because the environment that they've been planted in wasn't one of tending and nurturing and nourishment. It was a lot of like toughen them up, like you said, like prepare them for the hard world, like teasing, joking. I know my children have really helped me see the error of my ways when I would say something in a joking or teasing manner. And I would like feel like, I'm just giving you a hard time. And it's like, why would I ever want to give somebody I love a hard time? Why would I ever want to tease them? Why would I ever want to, like, I get jokes and like, are funny, but not at the expense of like another human's like sense of being, sense of self-worth, their emotions, their feelings. And many of us were treated that way. That's like the normal. It's actually like an alternative way to live, to just choose for like kindness and intentional communication, to say what you feel in a way that is not like undermining or poking someone. And I really think like, I'm so grateful that my children can like, I don't like joke. I don't like to be teased. I don't like, and so I catch myself, and I've been working on this for a really long time. And it's still something that it's a practice of like hearing what's coming out of my mouth and realizing like, oh, like that's not how I want to speak. Where did this come from? How long has this been? How many times was I subjected to being talked to this way? And what is the, like, I don't want to say damage, but what are the repercussions of my sweet body, soul, like spirit from being like imprinted with that kind of energy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you shared it's a practice, because again, we start out by bringing the consciousness to it. And I truly believe that our children are our greatest teachers.
Yes.
Like they come into this world like pure innocence and pure connection to source, or whatever name we want to give it. And then, through living, that all starts getting kind of chipped away. And in the process, though, as we're living and learning to be mothers and learning to become more conscious, and sun is deciding to peek out and shine. And I'm going to let it, because I don't get much sunshine at this time of year in Montana. It is a really great reflection back to us, because my children also are really quick to be like, that hurt my feelings. And growing up for me, that became a really natural state of being. And it's been a practice that I've had for years also. And I can still have it pop up. And now I'm getting to the point where I catch myself before they even say anything. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I want to rephrase that.
Yeah. Our words are so powerful, honestly. Like, I mean, even like, I have a friend that has brought to my attention, like when we say, I'm sorry, like even saying I am followed by any other word, like creates energy, and it creates an identity. And so like to maybe even I try to get my kids, like when they're like, I'm sorry, it's like, well, what if like I apologize, or sorry for that, like taking accountability. And I love that, like they're just words, and people can be like, oh, that's what people say, I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that you're sorry. But if words are like create energy, and anything following the I am or the I'm statement, if that is like a direct like imprint on who we are, then does it hurt to try to be more conscious with that when it's brought into our awareness? And so again, it's a practice, because I'm sure these things too, like, and yet because it's so natural in our language, because it's so ingrained in the way that we show up, it is a constant practice to tend to our words, our thoughts, the body. The practice of tending to our body is, gosh, that's probably one of the, I want to be careful with my words and not say hard or challenging, but like somewhere I need more consistency and more discipline. I'm really disciplined and have consistency in what I eat and how I show up and how I parent. But I really have want to deeply desire to create a more intentional practice and routine and rhythm around how I tend to this amazing vessel that carries me through each day. And yeah, so I'll just put that right there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And going back to the saying I'm sorry thing, what that brought up for me and witnessing it in myself and in my children, I think our bodies recognize that languaging isn't right. Because I think when we go to say, I'm sorry, there's almost like this tenseness. And some of that could come from, the shame or the guilt of whatever is requiring the need to apologize. But also, again, coming back to that languaging, is it the fact that is then being imprinted that's creating this tenseness or this like energy of I don't want to say that kind of thing. So anyways, it just brought to my attention because I know that there's always this kind of tension around that phrase too.
Yeah. No, and it's important. Like I think apologizing and holding ourselves accountable is such a beautiful like thing to promote within ourselves, within our relationships, within our children. Yeah, it's just how do we say it in the most intentional way, which leads me down like I feel like I could go down like another rabbit hole of like, oh, I don't force my children to say I'm sorry or sorry. Like that is never something that well, never is a big one. When I learned the importance of an authentic apology and how I would want to be treated, I would never want someone to apologize to me because someone else told me to do it. And I know when we get around family, sometimes that is the language and the reaction that a lot of people use, whether they're young or old. Say sorry to your sister, or did you say you're sorry? And for me, finding a replacement. So instead of saying like, say you're sorry, I often say, did you have a chance to talk to your brother or sister? Did you have, is there anything that you wanted to say? Did you check on them? Have you checked on them? And so that was something that I had to unlearn, along with saying good job and all of these other just like slogan go-to parenting like words and vocabulary, that when we have awareness and attention, we can notice how, yeah, like if my husband did something to me, it would not feel good at all if someone was telling, go say sorry to your wife, go say sorry to her. You need to go say sorry to her right now. Like, no, thank you. And that light just changed into the most beautiful, like beam spray. But like, I would much rather, and there are times that an apology or like taking accountability could like take 24 hours. Like not from my husband, like, but from my kids when they're in a situation, whether they've done something to me or to a grandparent or to a brother or sister, I hold the ground of like, I'm not forcing you to say you're sorry. And there will be a time where we have conversation throughout this, where they know that they could have done something differently, where they know that their actions hurt somebody or didn't end in desirable like consequences or situation. And then the time unfolds and on their own, they apologize. And I would rather have an apology that comes from the heart that took 2 days to like manifest than to have someone apologize to me or like because someone else told them to. So there's my soapbox on the word
Yeah.
sorry and apologize.
I love that. And I just having the conversations and trying to model for them and teach them, but yeah, also giving them that space of, I want you to do it on your own time and when you feel ready to do it. And I also love what you brought up about the good jobs and, all of that, and really figuring out like what exactly are you giving them a good job for, and trying to get more specific, like, wow, you did great really sticking with that and having patience to see it all the way through the end, or I'm really proud of you for or great job on the persistence, or like take it to the next level, like what is the good job, because it's not just about the success, but what was the energy leading up to whatever that success was. And if I catch myself being like, oh, that was awesome, I'm like, okay, but what am I instilling in them? Is it just to try to keep achieving that reaction out of me, or is it that I want them to recognize, like, I'm actually really proud of everything you put into place to get to this result, whatever it is?
Yeah, I know I had learned about that. I think there was a post called like good job and or a blog back in the blogging days about like good job and other things you shouldn't say. And I think when I first read it, like I got it, but it was also like I was in the infancy of my gentle parenting and conscious parenting. And so it was like, oh, what's the harm in saying good job to a kid, you know? And then my daughter was probably, I don't know, maybe under 4 probably. And we were at my neighbor's house, and my neighbor's a grown adult my age. And we were cutting up lemons, and my friend Rachel's cutting up lemons. And my daughter's like, good job, Rachel. And like, when I heard her say like, good job, Rachel, like it, it like really hit me like, oh, like, it doesn't even make sense. Like it just seems so out of context for a child to be telling another adult, or like if my friend Rachel, even if my daughter wasn't there, like I would never be like, good job, Rachel, as she like sliced the lemons. And so I feel like when we have those opportunities to like really like pay attention to what is being said and what's the intention behind it and what are we trying to like accomplish with our language. And then when we hear a child, like when it's like activated in that way, you can't unlearn it. It's like, oh, like what is like good job? Yeah, it doesn't really give much context for children. Like for those who are on the fence that are like, I say good job to my child all the time, it's good for them. I've learned and read that like it creates people pleasing. It creates like this sense of like seeking external validation. It creates like the energy of like them wanting to do something, or kind of shifting the way in their future. If they think that this way of behaving is going to get them more good jobs, that they're going to like navigate life with that lens of like seeking the good jobs. And so I'm sure there's more scientific and psychologically minded humans that could explain it better. But yeah, if you just pay attention and then try to shift, like Brittney was saying, how like identify, like notice something about their art. Like, oh, I noticed that you used these colors. Why did you choose these colors? Because when you say good job, it like ends the conversation. And when you use curiosity questions and thinking about things, then it like opens and you get to like tap into like the sacred wisdom of like a child's mind, you know, the sacred creativity, the imagination of like a child's mind, and which is so priceless.
And that brings up, I saw something recently about be careful, and how often that can be in our language as mamas too. My husband calls it the mama bubble, where like I'm like, oh, be careful, you like, don't do that. And I was reading something about like how many times a day do we say be careful, and what does that actually mean to a child and how they can just, get to the point where like, that doesn't mean anything, so I'm not going to do it. Or what am I being careful of? And to be more specific, like, oh, watch out for that branch right there, or oh, over there is slippery. And again, getting more specific with our language instead of just throwing out, be careful. Oh, don't do that. Like, don't do
Yeah.
that. What do you
Yeah.
want them to do? What do they need to be more mindful or aware of? And it comes down again to the teaching points and the, like, what language are we really using and putting out there? And I know there was one example of when my kids were younger and they would always be ahead of me, whether they were riding their bikes or running excitedly to the park, or we were on a walk, and I'd be like, okay, don't go further than you can see me, as they're faced away from me. And what I realized is, okay, like they already can't see me because I'm behind them. And so there was no understanding of don't go beyond where you can see me. And so like I had to shift my language around that after realizing that, and having some frustrating moments or some, potentially scary moments when I was like, why
Yeah.
didn't you wait? And once I kind of put together after talking to them and asking them questions, it was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, so
Yeah.
again, language.
Yeah, and it reminds me, like, with the be careful part of it, like, once your children know that you're choosing different language, like, it becomes really apparent. Like, so when someone tells them to say sorry, like, they know that that's not how we do things, that it, like, becomes part of, like, their value system is, no, I apologize and check on people when I'm ready. And then with, like, the be careful, so many people tell my kids be careful, and so they've communicated and we've had conversations that it completely undermines and doesn't consider that a child is being careful in every moment of their activity. Like, it just, like, when they're doing the monkey bars, they are being careful. Like, there's definitely a sense of like, okay, I'm doing something new, my attention is here, they know they can fall. Like, so when someone says be careful, you're assuming that that child is not being careful. And so my kids have been like, oh, she told me to be careful. I'm like, I know they say that because, and I like help them understand why they say it, but they feel that like, oh, that sense of erosion of like, or doubt that just because they're a child, that they don't have awareness or a sense of moving through life with this energy of being careful. So yeah, it's fascinating to pick apart language and to be really intentional with it. And it could feel okay. So that brings me to the next part. As a mama, I've done a lot of reading about things we shouldn't, things that I would not like to say, and alternatives. And there's other people that haven't. And so one lens is like I'm watching and observing, and it becomes so like painfully aware of like how many people say be careful or say you're sorry or say that. And then when those people are involved in your children's life, navigating that, where you're not trying to feel like you're constantly correcting somebody who's talking to your children that way, and also balancing the like, okay, I don't want to correct somebody for that, and I also don't want my children to experience that. And I guess like what's alive is that trust of like, when we hold a value and when we walk through life choosing like intentional language and setting the bar for how we want our children to be talked to, that they are internalizing it. And so even if they are getting that language from another person, that they know that that's not what has been like, what the goal is. They know that that's not what they want to, and I'm like a loss of words, like what they're wanting to, like, they don't resonate with that. Like if someone's telling me like, no, that doesn't feel right with like how I've been exposed or modeled, that there's another way of doing things.
And it stimulates conversation too, right? Of still, because my kids will come up and ask me questions or be like, so and so said this or did that, and it'd be really confusing for them. And modeling, like having a conversation with them that everybody's at different points in their life, and that they just haven't learned a better way, and to hold compassion for that person, knowing that we, speak or do or handle things differently. So I think like there's still great learning opportunities there for that compassion piece. And I also want to bring it back to, when we're talking about sacred lives and what it looks like to have a sacred life and be intentional about it. It's a lot easier to speak about it in tangible terms when we're relating to our children, but all of this circles back to relate to how we're handling ourselves and how we're handling the external world, because all of this begins with us and how we are able to model these behaviors for our kiddos. So yeah, anyways, that felt really pertinent, that again, it's easier to talk about our relationship and what we're modeling for our kiddos than it is to put it into the really tangible about what we're doing and the decisions that we're making in ourselves and how we're living our world. Because it's not that we are, constantly critiquing and being like, oh no, we want to do it this way, and oh no, you need to do it that way. It's that it's easier to paint the image of what we're learning and attempting to do for ourselves, and to demonstrate how we're modeling that and how it's showing up in these relationships with our children.
Yeah, it makes me think of like another thing, that people say is like, oh, if you don't finish your dinner, then you can't have dessert. And so I like to unpack that and stop that, because like I would like my children to honor their level of fullness, like they're to honor, like to be connected, to say, I'm done with this food right now, and I still have room for dessert. But if I finish all of this, trusting that they ate a considerable amount, but I feel like we could go down a rabbit hole of that one too. But I'm not a fan of saying you can only have dessert if you finish what's on your plate, because that doesn't teach our children to like listen to their bodies. And I think that highlights what you were saying, is like, by what I model and these new languages that I speak, it gives me an opportunity to teach my children, like, no, it's actually more important to listen to your body than to clean your plate and clear your plate. And I know there's so many people that suffer with eating disorders and things like that, because that hard rule of finish what's on your plate or clear your plate, you're not getting up from the table until you're done, completely overrides our innate wisdom of like tuning into like our body, checking for signs. Like we took I was on a call with Himalaya during our Cairo stuff, and she talked about knowing when your body was full. Like there's some signs that happen innately. Like I think I can't remember what comes, but we have this conversation now, is like the burp is like the sign that you're past that limit of like fullness. And so like now my children know that if someone burps at the table, like that's just an indication, that's a sign of our body communicating to us that we've reached our limit, when our mind and our stretched bellies and our taste buds and all of that stuff can be so deceiving. But when we slow down and we allow for like new information to come in, and then that sense of like giving attention to our body, we can actually create a relationship where it's communicating things to us, and we can use it as like a stop point before we're like, oh my gosh, I can't eat another thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're told like clear your plate, as children, I was never taught that there's a certain reaction that happens to your body that allows you to know when like you're at a good state of like being satiated, And so, yeah, a lot of this can seem overwhelming. Like you're learning all these new things, but when you begin to integrate them and have conversations about them, they quickly become part of like your family, like values, your family, like ways of doing things. And even like, just jokes, not the like making fun of you, teasing jokes, but like, oh, it looks like you're, like, we heard that burp, like you're done now, and it helps bring their attention and my own, like they laugh and like bring it to my attention. So yeah.
And it's
so much.
supporting the body shame stuff too, right? Like if we burp or other bodily reactions, there's built-in shame and embarrassment around these natural features of our bodies, and that starts to impact our health and a lot of other systems going on. And so bringing that awareness to, okay, how can we show, and there's still a balance of how those behaviors and how those functions come about, but
Yeah.
there's a really big importance for normalizing that and understanding what those are communicating with us so that we can understand that too. So I think having the play and the laughter around those is a really important aspect with childhood also.
Yeah. And there's such a high emphasis on like manners. So like instead of like a teaching opportunity where it's like, oh, that burp is actually an indication that you've like been satiated and you're like, your body's like, this could be a stopping point. Instead, it's like immediately like, don't burp at the table. We don't, like, and I get that like we want to have manners, but if it is literally our body's natural reaction to eating, to burp when we reach the maximum capacity, there is such shame or non-allowance or like awareness of, and I get it, like maybe we would encourage them to like burp softly or to turn their head away or to do it in a way that was maybe more respectful to the other people at the table. But there's no conversation of that at all. And yeah, like you said, there's such like body shame and a disconnect to that innate intelligence.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there was something else that wanted to come up, but I lost the thread that I was going to pull with that.
It'll come back, or we'll leave it in the next time too. But yeah, that was so many. I feel like just scratching the surface to what it means to be intentional with words, with presence, with what we're allowing into our space, with boundaries, with the environment that we create, which is all part of how we create like and cultivate a sacred life. And I feel like maybe that term could be like kind of mystical or like not tangible enough. And I hope that a little of this conversation kind of cracks that open to be able to see. But I feel like we could go in to so many areas, like creating sacred business, creating sacred partnerships with the people in relationships, creating like a sacred routine to support our bodies, creating a practice with like rituals and things that we want, that we know will help us thrive and increase our vitality. And it came to me a while ago, I think if you go in to have your like vital signs checked, they're like feeling your pulse or like checking your like your lung capacity, and just some really baseline like vital signs is what they're looking for. And I was like, no, like signs that I'm fully alive would indicate that I am like my nervous system is in a well tended to space, that I'm not reactive, that I'm thriving, that I'm nourished. And so like instead of like vital signs, like I leaned into like I want to cultivate like vitality in myself and my family and my children, in my community, in this world. Like I think there's just a lack of vital signs. There's a lack of vitality, and there's just a heavy emphasis on like, yeah, you're alive, you've got the vital sounds, your pulse, your heart, all those things, but like, are you doing what you love? Is the work that you're doing tending and nourishing your state of well-being? Are the relationships you have with your children, with your partner, with your friends, are they lending to you feeling lit up? And so I think that was the other piece of like a sacred life is like measured, and like you test the pulse of it by your like level of vitality.
And I was just having a conversation with my husband last night of trying to paint a picture. And, you know, a couple hundred years ago and before that, like the really big thing was finding new land and crossing uncharted waters, right? And an exploration of the physical world of Earth. And in this day and age, I think what we're doing is, and I think the next step is that exploration of our inner world and learning what it means to follow our heart and not follow the programming and the paradigms and the language of grinding it out and working hard to be successful. It's learning what is the language of our body and what does it feel like and mean to follow our heart? What does it mean to unpack our emotions, or what does it feel like to have stuck, stagnant emotions, and where does that go? And so the next level of exploration is going into our own being to discover, what does it mean for me as the unique individual that I am to live in my fullest capacity and feel fully alive and have that vitality that we all want to have, and that sense of thriving, not just surviving or having our heart still beating, but not have the playfulness and the joy and the sense of peace in our inner world.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me think of like, okay, so if we're like, there was the exploration and the seeking out, and that can manifest in us like chasing our healing, chasing our own healing. Like, we don't want to like plant the seed of you like trying to chase this sacred life or chase this sense of vitality. Like, there's no reason to chase it. When you slow things down and you begin creating ritual and rhythm and weaving in things that are supportive and cultivate more presence and activate our senses and like connect you with nature and allow you to see your body through a lens of love and gratitude, like, you don't have to go anywhere. Like, all of that stuff is free. All of that stuff is literally just waiting for you to arrive and drop into that space. So like, let's stop chasing our healing. Let's stop chasing this self-development hamster wheel. Like, let's just pause and be with ourselves so that we can like tap into the wisdom and the miracle and the divinity that is us without doing anything. We are an expression of creation, and that in and of itself is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, very beautifully said.
It's what we're passionate about.
It is. That is everything we are so passionate about and here to hold space for and to explore and take to deeper and deeper levels and to get to know ourselves better than we ever really thought was possible based on, how we were raised and what the paradigms are out and around us.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And I just had a thought too that just flew. Oh, I was going to say, we haven't been talking about it very much, but we are very passionate about what we are creating, and we are working on our own like inner workings, our own inner self-doubt, our own limiting beliefs, in order to overcome what is standing in our way from like speaking about and sharing and being more clear and offering, inviting into what is like coming through us and what we're wanting to bring into the world. And so we're in the effort of practicing, because that is what it takes, it is a consistent practice to to be visible and to speak and being proud and to shout from the rooftops that Brittney and I have created space for a beautiful offering to begin taking life and forming. And the offering, the container that we're creating that we want to walk people through is going to be called Rising Uprooted. And we're going to be giving and sharing a lot more about that in the coming weeks. The official start date is going to be the week of the winter solstice. And prior to that, we're going to be hosting a free call, a gathering, a sharing of information. We joked around, like trying to find, it's not a mastermind. And we're like, what about a huddle? Like, it's where you come and you look at the game and you look at the way things are being like played and what's unfolding, and you come for support and encouragement. So we're toying and playing with the word, the Healing Mama Huddle, but it is going to be focused on vitality and cultivating a sacred life. And so we're really excited about it, but you wouldn't know because we're not very good at being visible yet.
Again, it's a practice, and we're committing to practicing it more. And this is everything that we're really passionate about. And we have a big vision for what it can really look like to have full vitality and to really put our intention and attention behind creating a sacred life, and what that looks like in these simple practices. Again, just having those pauses and the acknowledgement and the gratitude, or the intention of, even if you don't fully know how to do it, just holding the intention of, I see this and it doesn't feel good in my body and I want to shift it. And then being patient for seeing how that can unfold and shift. Because if you put the intention there, the universe or our guides or angels or the Great Spirit will bring things around into your space and into your realm, into your line of sight, that will start to support you in those shifts. And being a part of communities like this that hold that intention and come together in a gathering or a huddle, it kind of takes those intentions to the next level, because it's bringing together a whole group of people holding that same energy and that same intention, and it naturally just raises and amplifies the transformation that can take place.
Yes. Yes, all of that. That was amazingly said. Yeah, we're really excited, and gosh, we're having a lot of fun. And what we've noticed is that even though we have each other, like, we're still navigating and moving through the same pieces that were alive when we were wanting to create content and offerings on our own. And it is really beautiful to that community, even two people would that have an awareness and are intentional and know the power of language and know the power of practice, how that camaraderie, how that connection and support system is enough to like get you over these hurdles, allow you to expand, to allow you to step further out of your comfort zone. So yeah, it's really cool to have, like, to be witnessed, to be in this infancy and to have people along for this ride. And I can just fast forward and think like a year from now, where we can sit back and say we did it. Like, we didn't let all of the programming, all of the stories, all of the habits and the patterns that didn't serve us, we were able to overcome those. We were able to feel them and move through them and be on the other side of them. So yeah, we love having you all along for the ride, and knowing that our intention is to connect with other mamas who are wanting to cultivate that sacred life and have a sacred business and have a sacred family and have a sacred connection with their body and the divine and nature, that when we speak to even the business parts, there's nuggets of wisdom that y'all will glean from that as well.
And learning together that life can be different and approached differently. It doesn't all have to be hard work and struggle, and we can learn new ways of allowing things to unfold and to invite more joy and flow into our life, and that we're not chasing perfection, and we're all coming at this from different places, and it's all, again, it's all, they call it a practice for a reason, right? It's not a completion, it's not a graduation, we're not finishing something and being done with it. It's a constant spiral, and it's a constant deepening, and it's because it's where our heart is leading us, that we know at a deep level that things can be different and things can be more supportive, and there's more wisdom to be gained and more love and compassion that can be introduced, and that's what keeps taking us forward on the journey.
Yeah, and I love that you brought the word practice back into it. It reminds me, at some point it was brought into my awareness that, like, a doctor, like, that has an office that sees patients, it is called their practice, and if someone, and I think we've been sold, it was again brought into my awareness that so many of us have been given these like false hopes of shortcuts of, like, whether it's business related, or here are 3 quick steps to become a better mother, or 3 quick fixes for your relationship. And the truth is like, there may be some beautiful wisdom in there, but it's all about the practice, and it's all about you. And because many of us have I'm trying to be careful with my language, but yeah, we let ourselves down a lot. Sometimes our commitment to ourselves, following our heart, our desires, is not prioritized. Our commitment to what we're dreaming of, the life we're wanting to create, like our goals, like, they often get pushed aside. And so along with that comes like a deficiency in holding ourselves to our own practices of disciplining ourselves and being committed. And so that's part of why we're creating this container, is for us personally, to deepen our own journeys into reverence and ritual and sacred living, and sharing where we've come from, sharing where we're at, sharing where we want to go, and knowing that the mamas that we want to work with and that we want in our community are on that spectrum as well. Some are more advanced and further ahead, or have gained a deeper mastery in some areas of life, and others in other areas of life. And that's the beauty of coming together, and that collaboration, that like coming to the well of, like, that's like people would go and get water and fetch water from the well, and in that process share information and share stories and find community. So yeah, we're really excited to be creating this space to support ourselves and to support other mamas who have a similar vision and like that internal calling to want to create something different.
Beautiful, intentional nourishment.
Yes, exactly. I love that. That's amazing. Well, I feel like we did a pretty good job. Like, we set the intention before this in our sacred business to allow the messages and to allow what was kind of being like bubbled up within ourselves, to give it space and room to breathe, and hopefully some conversation around it, so that we can continue to grow and expand and evolve and support others along the way. So we're wrapping up our 6th episode of the Healing Mamas, and if you lit a candle, we'd love to invite you to blow it out with us. And Brittney, if you want to just close the container for us and send everyone on their own merry sovereign way, that would be amazing.
Yes, and if any of this is calling to you, we will have that link below.
Yeah, so click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. comment.
Want you in our community, and we want to meet you, and we want to journey with you. So
Yeah.
and with that, let's go ahead and just pause for a moment, feeling your body, maybe feeling your clothes up against your skin, or the warm or cool air blowing around in your environment. And really focus on taking a slow, deep breath in and feeling the energy or the sense of power or nourishment or life force that comes with that as you breathe it down into your belly. And allowing each of us to step away from this episode 6 as complete and sovereign beings that are bringing more intention and awareness to what it means for each of us in our own way to step into a more sacred way of living and being in our daily moment to moments. And with that, goodbye to all of you for now.